I felt like I must have not had enough faith in God or something because of the twisted way that my mind was relating my ability to perform with my worth. And my body wasn't performing. Hello. So, I may be wearing the same sweatshirt, but don't be fooled. This is many days later. And I recorded this video on Thursday to share on Saturday. And it's kind of funny timing, but on Friday, I went into a pretty intense flare-up of my Hashimoto's disease, which I actually haven't had in months. I haven't had any pain or anything in months, and it just like overnight went super downhill. So that's why this video is late, and I know that you'll all be okay with that, but yeah, I think that along with it, it's just timely to also mention that when it comes to autoimmune issues or anything like, you know, pain or mental health related, but like for me, it's really the pain and my breathing. The thing that you just don't know when you're going to be put on pause. So it's interesting because I remember recording this video and crying, thinking about what the pain felt like. And then the next day I was in pain. And now I've been in pain for like 3 days, and it's been really, really hard. But yeah, so while you're watching this video, that's why it's late, and I think I'll come back at the end and say something also. Bye. Enjoy the video. Or, yeah, we'll see. Okay. It is now my 4th time trying to record this video. It's great. I am ready. We're going to do this. And welcome to my channel, whether you're new or old. I'm so glad that you're here. If that's your first time watching, please go ahead, go down, like, and subscribe. I hope that you enjoy this video. This is a hard one for me because I have been procrastinating recording this video for quite a while now. I didn't want to, but also I really, really did want to. That's like the struggle I've been going through. As you saw from this title, it's a very personal video. And it was kind of overwhelming to kind of attempt to discuss this, but I wanted to. I think that a lot of people can probably relate to my story, and if you can, maybe why you clicked on this video, and I hope that it brings you some sort of hope or peace or something, or just, you know, relatability, whatever it is. I need more coffee, and we're gonna get into this. As you saw in the title, I want to share with you my health journey, and that's going to be everything from physical health, dealing with an autoimmune disease and an eating disorder, and health-related issues, to also my mental health and my spiritual health and my emotional health, because they all tie together. I have noticed that with my autoimmune issues, it is so emotional for me that I kind of like to just forget about most of the stuff that's happened. And that's another reason why I didn't record this sooner, is that, number one, sometimes I don't remember everything that I've felt or gone through in the last 8 years. And number two, I don't want to think about it. But at the end of the day, I can't ignore it. You know, this is a significant portion of my life, so I'm going to share now with you. And Lord Jesus, help me. So I'm just going to start from the beginning of my life. It's not going to be a long video at all. I grew up pretty overweight as a kid. I loved food, still do. I think at 8th grade was my peak. I was about 220 pounds in 8th grade, and I do think that weight is not important as far as the number on the scale. I think that whatever weight you are, you can be beautiful and confident and healthy. But for me, the thing that led me to be that weight was that I was not healthy. I wasn't taking care of myself or cherishing the body that I had. My relationship with my body and with food really affected my confidence, and I ended up developing very severe anxiety going into my freshman year of high school. I was going to a new school with brand new people, didn't know any of them, but I struggled. And so I actually ended up dropping out of high school 2 days after starting my freshman year. Throughout that year, I started I was just very depressed. And so this is where my mental health really started to be affected by my physical health, because I didn't take care of myself. I didn't value myself. And I ended up just falling into this really deep pit of darkness. And ironically enough, that was also the year that I started exercising. I noticed throughout that year that I could use food to control my body. And that started a very unhealthy knowledge of how I could control myself. But then later in my freshman year, that was when I met Jesus. And I would love to tell you that, I met Jesus and everything changed, that I suddenly loved myself and that I was completely healed of all of my mental and physical issues. But I wasn't. But I was learning to love myself because I could feel the love of Christ. Started back in school my sophomore to junior year, I went on a mission trip to Nicaragua. And about 2 weeks after coming back from that trip, I started getting sick. Suddenly, I was having some very unexplained severe symptoms. I started getting dizzy and started having pain in my back and my legs, which over the next few months of my junior year progressed into constant dizziness. And then I developed visual blackouts, which are hard to explain. But I would go blind. My eyes would stop working. I would only see black. It'd go away for like a few seconds and then it'd come back. And then thus developed my journey with autoimmune diseases. By the end of my junior year, I was in full autoimmune disease territory. I would be constantly dizzy. I was in chronic pain in my entire body. I had inflammation from head to toe. I was blacking out 10 to 12 times a day, just completely unable to see, added with the dizziness. I was unstable. I experienced, and it just got worse. So then I went into senior year of high school and I missed about 50 days of school, probably collectively. I missed so much school. I was in the nurse's office half the time that I was at school, and I was taking so many pain medicines. I was anywhere from ibuprofen 7 or 8 times a day to getting onto heavier narcotics like, what was this thing called? I don't even know. It was like a heavy dosage Advil. It was like 1,000 milligrams in one pill of acetaminophen. And I was just medicating, and my pain was getting progressively worse to the point where there were no medications that could relieve my pain. Graduating high school, I went to some doctor who suggested that I stop having gluten and dairy. I stopped eating gluten and dairy and actually felt better. Ended up losing 20 pounds from not eating dairy and gluten. And so collectively I had lost like 60 pounds at this point. I was very much enthralled with the way that food could be controlled to affect my body. And I think that this was the next kind of step in developing some issues with my relationship to food, because now food wasn't something to fuel me and take care of me, but the more I restricted the food that I ate, the more I was in control of how I felt, whether that be with my autoimmune symptoms or whether it be my confidence and my weight and things like that. And so my health was progressively getting worse. But I could tell that not eating certain foods and restricting things could kind of ease certain symptoms, while at the same time I loved the fact that I could control my weight by not eating. I still ate, I wasn't anorexic or anything like that. And yes, you can be anorexic without being 80 pounds. It just means that you're headed in that direction. So food is so important. And so then I started college and I began an internship program at my church. This internship program was costly in terms of my mental health. I went downhill in the way that I viewed myself because my worth was now directly related to what I could produce. For those of you who are not Christian, that's not how Christianity is supposed to be. But I was under some very unhealthy leadership that caused me to feel as though I needed to perform to be worthy of the grace of God, and that was not true. But my health significantly declined during this time because I did not slow down. I was blacking out between 20 to 30 times a day by the time I was a sophomore in college. I was in constant chronic pain, highly medicated, and it never ended. The pain never stopped. And it's started getting much, much worse going through college because I got busier and busier and busier. And I thought that if I ignored my pain and my symptoms, that they wouldn't exist. And it's even hard for me to process because it was so normal to ignore the signs that my body was giving me. And my blackouts would be triggered by almost anything, but I did not want to feel weak. By the time I was about to graduate this internship program, I was on autopilot of pretending that I was a normal person. And I would be walking through the gym at my church trying to set up for a youth night, and I would bend over and I'd get up and be completely blind, and I would just pretend that I could see. And I'd just stand there until it was back. And then I'd go on and I wouldn't tell anybody because it was like so random of symptoms that were completely unexplainable that I didn't even feel the need to talk about it anymore. And this is going to sound terrible. But as someone who is Christian and goes to church, people always wanted to pray for me. And I was really tired of people praying for me because they wanted to pray for miraculous healing from God, and He wasn't healing me. He wasn't healing me. And I did not want to be angry at God. I knew that there was some reason for the timing that He had. However, I was really tired of people praying for me and getting my hopes up that maybe God would miraculously heal me. But at the same time, looking back, I don't think I wanted to be miraculously healed because I didn't even know what life would look like if I was healthy. I was so sick for so long that I didn't know what it would mean to not be sick anymore. 4 years of constant pain in my entire body, constant dizziness where I didn't even know what it meant to look at the world straight. Ending that internship, I just felt like God wanted me to be sick the rest of my life, I guess. Like I don't know. I wasn't bitter toward God, but I was bitter toward the church because people kept trying to pray for me. This is what it is. People kept trying to pray for me without asking me what was wrong. And I didn't have a single person in my life except probably my mom who knew all of my symptoms. And she didn't even fully understand it, but she was devoted to trying. But everybody else, I just felt like this huge burden that they couldn't even understand what foods I couldn't eat or what my symptoms were on a daily basis. So why are you praying for me? You don't even understand what's wrong. And so this is when I started, I guess, just getting really bitter toward people. And I wanted more control over my life. I wanted more control over my body. I just would medicate myself with busyness. I didn't want to be on narcotics anymore. So I stopped taking them because I just figured if I'm going to be in pain the rest of my life, I might as well feel it. And that sounds really dark, but like I felt like if I was constantly on painkillers, then I could be hurting myself more by not knowing like what's going on with my body. So I wanted to be very aware of the pain, and it was exhausting, but at the same time it's like I didn't want to become addicted to anything. So I always tended toward natural remedies and things like that. So let me collect my thoughts a little bit. Going into my junior year of college, I ended up quitting the job that I had nannying for the past 4 years because it was just too far and it was too difficult, and my health was progressively getting to a point where I could not manage it anymore. I couldn't pick up a child without blacking out, and so nannying 3 young boys was not possible for me. So I had to find another type of job, and I ended up working as a medical assistant in a pediatrics office. And as I worked there, my health also started declining. I was nannying for 2 other families as well, and I was paying my way through college. I feel like I'm explaining this while at the same time trying to ignore how painful it was. But that's also pretty accurate to how I lived. I tried to ignore how painful it was. But there always comes a time when you can't ignore it anymore. I remember my junior year of high school, of college. My junior year of college was when my breathing issues began. And I can remember how it felt, because suddenly I couldn't breathe the way that I used to. Suddenly I'd get out of breath doing very basic tasks. I went to a doctor that year who tried to help me figure out what was going on. And in the process, I was getting worse and worse. And I'm trying to think what year this was. It was going into 2019, January of 2019. I was constantly just trying to get in a breath. I couldn't sit on the couch for too long or just sit still. I would need to get up and take very pointed breaths. I was constantly out of breath and so dizzy that I would get nauseous, and it genuinely felt like being trapped in a small container, like where you can breathe, but the oxygen is just getting less and less and less, and you worry that eventually there's gonna be none left. And I would have some good days and I'd have some bad days, but I really was struggling because at this point my autoimmune disease went from rheumatological, which is inflammation in my joints and in my bones, to neurological, which was the inflammation in my brain. We later found out inflammation in my brain that caused my dizziness and my blackouts. I don't know if you can see me. And now it was progressing to inflammation in my respiratory system, where my lungs were so inflamed that they couldn't fill. It was January 2019 that for the first time I thought to myself, I don't think that I'm going to live. I don't think that I'm going to live. And this is something that's pretty hard to talk about because I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell anyone that I felt that way. Because especially in the church world, it was very common for people to tell me that I just need to have faith that that's not God's plan for me. But what I had to tell them was that they don't know what God's plan is for me. And I love him with my whole heart, mind, broken body, and soul. But I thought that there was a large chance that I was going to die very young. And I didn't like sharing that with the people that were closest to me because they would get sad or scared. And I didn't share that with anyone not close to me because they would invalidate it. So I kind of just began to be very stuck in a very dark place. And this was 2019. I had been dating my boyfriend at that time for about, like 2 years, and didn't tell him how I felt because he didn't understand. And my friends, I didn't really tell them because I just felt like a burden. And sometimes I would really like expose myself and share things with people, but they would soon forget. And though they cared at the time deeply, it wasn't their life and it wasn't their battle. So it was something that would leave their mind quite quickly. And so at this point in 2019, I was pretty certain that I was, I kind of lost faith. And it was actually the same month that I had this feeling that I met this doctor who he specialized in neurological autoimmune diseases such as like Alzheimer's. And I went to see him as kind of a last ditch effort to find someone who could help me because Kaiser wouldn't help me. They were no help whatsoever. And my anxiety and depression were progressively getting a lot worse. I couldn't sleep at night. I had extreme insomnia. Sorry, I'm just like a mess. And so I went to see this doctor, and in my consultation with him, I just kind of laid it all out. My mom had this realization that we had mold in our house, and he was very concerned with the mold. He thought that that was a very important thing to look into because mold can be toxic. And so I was praying and I asked the Lord, if this is something that you want me to pay attention to, be very obvious. Be very obvious. And then I went on a trip to Portland. And when I came back from Portland, there had been a huge storm here and it was like raining. And apparently during the time I was gone, it rained on our roof and mold surfaced in our ceiling, covering our entire living room with black mold everywhere. And I was like, okay, God, well, that was pretty much as obvious as you could have made it. I need to pay attention to this mold issue. So I got the tests done and immediately moved out of my house because my doctor said that if it was mold poisoning, I needed to get away from it as soon as possible. And when my test results came back, it came back that I was positive with 3 different types of mold poisoning. And so then I started a natural route to take care of it,
which included getting out of the area. So my family actually had to move out of that house. We had to find a new home. We had to get rid of about 50% of our belongings, or even more than that. Anything that could have had mold in it, we had to get rid of. Books, wooden furniture, clothing that couldn't be washed, or things of that nature. If anything couldn't be cleaned, we had to get rid of it. So we lost a majority of our belongings.
After getting out of the environment, I had to detox my whole body. I had to cut out everything from my diet and basically start over.
Long story short, I had mold poisoning, but that's not the end of that actually ended up not being what my autoimmune issues were caused by. Graduated my junior year, being detoxed from mold and living in a new home, and I thought that that was going to be the end of it. I felt significantly better, but not perfect, and I thought that, maybe I would just have to live with kind of the residual effects of the mold poisoning. That was a little bit discouraging because I wanted all my problems to go away. I wanted to be perfectly healthy, but I didn't know what that felt like. So I didn't even know what to expect from that. Because of the detox that I went through, that really triggered a worsening of my relationship with food and my desire to control how my body felt with food. So anytime after that point, if I would have any sort of little flare up, I would immediately restrict my diet and I would stop eating because I was so terrified of getting back to that place. And the thing that stuck with me the most after finishing the mold poisoning detox was my breathing was still very bad. Even right now, I'm trying to like breathe and it's hard thinking about this time. It's not hard because you're thinking about this time. It's because you're about to have a flare up. But I went in my senior year of college and had this terrible relationship with food. So I would regularly be eating about 900 calories a day, just trying to avoid a flare up, trying to avoid pain and avoid nausea or dizziness and things like that. So I quickly developed what I know now is an eating disorder, because it is just restrictive eating to the most severe degree. Some days I would get to like 7 p.m. at night and realize, I haven't eaten anything today. And eating kind of quickly left my scope of thought. And so getting toward the end of, toward where I'm at right now with my health journey, I was starting to realize at this point in my senior year of college, which was last year, that I was diagnosed with this mold issue and it didn't fix my problems. And that was really discouraging. And like I told you, I did not really think that I was going to live. And so then I kind of had a little more hope and I was moving into this next phase of my life of like, okay, maybe this is just how I'm going to feel. This is a little bit more manageable. My body was being poisoned and it was completely out of my control. But what I could control was how I took care of myself. And though at this time I had a really unhealthy relationship with food, I think that I did have a more healthy relationship with my body. And I appreciated the strength that I had a little more. I think it was November of 2019. I noticed that my depression and anxiety were getting very, very bad. And like I said, I was in a kind of healthy place mentally as far as like my health and feeling a little more in control and feeling stronger. So as I started getting more and more depressed and anxious, I was confused because I didn't know what was causing it. And so then I went to see a psychiatrist. And so I told him everything and he's like, well, it makes sense why you're anxious and depressed. So that's when I started to take antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication. I also began to take pills to sleep at night. I went through and started 2020 feeling a lot better. Gosh, I feel like I'm just going on and on and on. I don't even know if this is interesting to anybody, but I'm sure that somebody has experienced this, so I'm just going to keep going. I just left off with saying that we were in a pandemic, I believe. And I was going from a busy lifestyle to suddenly stopping. Just stopping. I couldn't go to work anymore. I was working from home. I couldn't go out with my friends anymore. Everything's closed and I wasn't seeing people and I was completely alone. And I was like, everything that I was used to try and cope with my illness, I couldn't do anymore. And I was forced to just be at home. And so I was going on walks every day. It was pretty good. I was taking it slow. I was resting. And I was suddenly enjoying resting. I was suddenly enjoying taking care of myself, which was just crazy. In April, I was starting to take a turn downhill again. And it's so annoying. It's so annoying to talk about. Like, I don't even like talking about the process, because it was really like this, just progressively going down. And it's so irritating because at this point I was like, okay, I've had peaks of sickness like 10 different times and told people that I was getting better like 10 different times. And every single time I had a flare, I felt like such a disappointment. I felt like I must have not had enough faith in God or something, because of the twisted way that my mind was relating my ability to perform with my worth. And my body wasn't performing. I was struggling. And in April of 2020, around my birthday, a switch must have flipped and I just went down. My body was hurting every single day. I could barely move some days. I was in so much pain that the thought of getting out of bed was excruciating. And I started having arthritis type pain in my hands and in my feet, and walking hurt. And I couldn't type without pain. I couldn't open jars or doors or hold my phone or write or do anything. I was literally falling to pieces. And it's so irritating to talk about, because it's like, I don't know, maybe if you're listening to this story, you hear the progression and it's like, oh, she's getting better. Oh, she's getting better. Oh, she's getting worse. Oh, she's really bad. And that's like literally how I felt. It feels so dumb talking about getting sick again, because I was like, didn't I just go through this? Didn't I just get better? Why am I already sick again? What's happening? And I was so frustrated. And this is when my breathing started getting worse again also. And just basically inflammation in my entire body was taking place. It was just depleting my energy to a point of no return. And I was empty. I felt empty. And going into May, I was in such pain that I didn't want to get out of bed. I basically only did work, and then I laid in bed and I couldn't move and I couldn't breathe. And I would sit and I would cry because I didn't know what else to do. And I was so angry at God because I felt like I had been lied to on many different levels. The main one being that I thought I was better. I thought I had been allergic to mold and that was the problem, but I was getting worse again, and mold couldn't have been the problem. So what was wrong with me? And that was really how I viewed it, was something was wrong with me. And in May, my mental health was at an all-time low because I genuinely felt like such a burden and such a disappointment and such a bad Christian that God wasn't healing me and that he wasn't proving himself to me. And I felt like I might as well just die. And that was the point that I had gotten to last spring, of feeling like I would be better off dead. Then nobody could be burdened by me. Nobody could be disappointed with me. I would stop hurting people with my pain. And I felt so alone because the way that I felt about my health, nobody could understand. Nobody knew. Nobody knew how bad it was. Except my mom, and we were in quarantine, so I had like 2 friends that were coming over and they could see it, but other than that, I just felt completely alone. And I thought that I probably was going to end up dying anyway. And that's where I was at. Life just felt too hard. But I decided that it couldn't get any worse. So after one deep mental breakdown where I had almost tried to end my life, I ended up going to see the doctor that had diagnosed me with mold poisoning. And I went to see him and told him everything that was happening, told him how I felt. And he ordered a lot of blood work. And I kind of was like, okay, blood work. I had, when I first got sick, I was having blood tests done once a month for 5 years. I don't know, I just didn't expect anything of it. So we had all this blood tests done outside of Kaiser, and ended up finding that I was not producing the thyroid hormone active in your body. So something called TSH is developed in your brain that's sent to your thyroid that triggers T4, which is an inactive hormone to be created, sent to your gut and your bloodstream and your liver, and then it's there activated into T3, which is the active thyroid hormone. My body was not triggering T3 to become active in my body. And in May of 2020, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease, which is a thyroid autoimmune disease. My body has thyroid antibodies, and when triggered from either food or stress or different things, triggers your body to be attacked, and your thyroid specifically to be attacked, and your thyroid does everything. Basically, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease and went into a treatment program. Why I was so susceptible to mold poisoning was that my body, if toxins entered it, it triggered the thyroid antibodies, and my thyroid was then attacked. So my susceptibility to mold poisoning caused me to then have a triggered thyroid issue, but I didn't know it was a thyroid issue. I progressively started getting so much better. And the thing about Hashimoto's, or any thyroid disease, which is why I told this as a story in its entirety, is that your thyroid is your hormone producing organ, and it affects not only your respiratory, neurological, and rheumatological systems, which were all areas that I have extreme inflammation in when I have a flare-up, but it also directly affects your body's development of depression and anxiety. This was a miracle. I mean, I believe that it was a miracle to have found out the way that I did. Would I have liked to know sooner? Yes. However, I think that it was all in God's timing, even though I'm just gonna be honest, like, I'm still questioning him. I mean, I don't know why he waited. And that's something that I may not ever know until I'm in heaven. And it still frustrates me sometimes. I know that there was good. Just like it says in Romans 8:28, God uses all things for the good of those who love him and who are called according to his purposes. And I know that he used me in many situations that I would not have been in had I not had an autoimmune disease, and had I not been struggling. There was people that I wouldn't have been able to speak to on such a personal level. However, I'm still pretty mad at him sometimes that, he didn't heal me. But I know that God can handle my anger. I know that he can handle my pain. So that's my story. Right now, I feel amazing. I started my YouTube channel in the middle of my treatment program. So I needed something to bring joy to my life. And I decided that I wanted to start a YouTube channel to talk about personal development and kind of following like the passions that you have in your life, because I realized that a few things. My circumstances weren't going to change. I was in pain and I couldn't control that pain. My body would self-destruct at a moment's notice and I couldn't change that. But there were things in my life that purely flooded my heart with passion. I love music. I love helping people. I love personal development and becoming the best version of yourself. And I wanted so badly to share that with people. I just wanted to be able to share something good and beneficial with the world. I hope that this helped you get to know me a little bit better, because this is a big part of my life. And so, as I'm on YouTube and I'm talking and I'm sharing, even though I've been diagnosed, I still struggle with my health now, because there's triggers and things that I can't recognize immediately. And so this is a journey that's still going on for me. I want to be able to help people push forward. And that leads me to an announcement that I'll be actually launching in February. So not yet, but it has to do with this. And I'm not going to tell you yet, but just know that this is a little sneak peek of it. And it's very exciting, because I'm moving forward. I'm moving forward in my dreams for my life, which include giving people the ability to reach their dreams. So I'm so thankful that you listened to this whole thing. If you made it through this whole video, praise God. I don't really know how long it was, since I recorded it like 4 separate times. To me, it's been like 8 hours of me trying to record this video, but I'm so thankful that you listened. If you're not already subscribed, please click down below and subscribe to my channel, turn on the notification bells, and like this video. Please like and comment anything, but really, if you can relate to this, share with me down below any of your autoimmune struggles, maybe an area that you related to feeling the way that I felt. I couldn't really go into all of it, so if you'd like to hear more about Hashimoto's, mental health, eating issues, different things, I would love to share my experience, because I think it's really healing for me, but also I'm sure that so many people relate. Just ask me in the comments, request what you'd like.
So hello, I know that I just ended the video there, but I just again wanted to say, yeah, I'm kind of in a new perspective dealing with it again. It's been a really difficult last 3 days, and I just want to tell anybody watching this who may be in pain or going through something, you're not alone. And it's hard, because I've cried multiple times in the last few days, because I feel very alone. And it's hard when, you can explain your best, but nobody's really going to understand what it feels like to be in your skin. But I just hope that even though I don't understand for you, I care. And I hope that that someone does care. And we can get through it together. So thank you for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Sorry if you can't hear me. It's a little bit hard to talk, but I'll see you guys next week.